You may have missed it, but this happened.
It was a stunning admission with less than three weeks to go before the election. The NDP admitting over the weekend that there is a $1.4 billion costing error in their platform.
The Ottawa Citizen reported that the NDP had wrongly categorized a $700 million reserve fund as revenue. So how does $700 million become $1.4 billion? Well, first you have to know what a reserve fund is. By law, governments must set aside money just in case something unexpected happens that requires immediate funding. But here's the thing, reserve funds have to be counted as an expense in the budget. You have to assume that you're going to spend it. The NDP's initial platform had the $700 million listed as a revenue. But not only is it not a revenue, it's an automatic deficit. So while the NDP platform looked like this, it should have looked like this.
We've fixed the problem that was identified.
This kind of mistake would be embarrassing for any political party, but it looks especially bad for the Ontario NDP. Not only because the party has been fending off accusations that its numbers don't add up, or because leader Horwath has talked a lot about how thoroughly they check the numbers, it's because of this guy. If you're over 50, you're probably cursing at your screen right now, and if you're under 50, you may recognize him as a Liberal MP or the interim leader of the Federal Liberal Party. Either way, that's Bob Rae, Ontario's first and only NDP premier to date. Despite the fact that he was elected premier before I was born, and that he then left the party to become a Liberal, Bob Rae's legacy as premier has haunted the Ontario NDP for over 2 decades.
As premier and president of the council.
In a nutshell, Rae was elected premier of Ontario as Canada entered a recession. He tried to spend his way out of it, and the province racked up a lot of debt. His government then increased taxes and tried to save money by forcing public service workers to take unpaid days off, which became known as Rae Days. He angered a lot of people across the political spectrum, especially his own NDP Labour base.
Now, you can argue that it's the recession that caused all the other bad problems, not vice versa, that in fact, Bob Rae was just stuck being premier at a lousy time to be premier. But memories are long in Ontario, and anything that reminds Ontarians of the Bob Rae government would tend to be a bad news for the NDP.
The fallout from Rae's time in office was massive for the Ontario NDP. The party had won 74 seats in 1990, the most in the province's history. In the next election, they only won 17. In the 5 elections since, the party still hasn't fully recovered. So it makes sense then that this time around, Horwath had a fully costed platform from the outset. After all, the province's finances have been center stage this election. Doug Ford talks about how he's good at managing money, but still hasn't revealed how he plans to pay for anything. Kathleen Wynne has lost credibility since the province's Auditor General accused the Liberals of understating deficit projections by about $5 billion. And then there's Horwath, who plans to run a deficit, but one not as big as the Liberals. This time around, the NDP has a real shot of winning. Horwath has the opportunity to attract all of the anti-Kathleen Wynne voters that aren't taken with Doug Ford's style of politics. A recent poll found that nearly half of the NDP voters are voting for the party just in order to prevent the Liberals and the Progressive Conservatives from winning.
Right now, it's starting to look like nothing can slow the NDP down. But if anything could, it would be a dumb arithmetic mistake, the sort of thing that you would assume that a high school student would be able to avoid. One that reminds people of their pre-existing assumption that the NDP shouldn't be trusted with public finances, something that reminds Ontarians of the Bob Rae days. So for those reasons together, this is not a trivial problem for the NDP. It's one that they must be really regretting, and one that could hurt their chances going forward.
So if you live in Ontario, go check your mail. You probably have a little card in it that explains exactly how you can vote. The election is on June 7th, so get out and vote, people.